I'm John Caudwell. Welcome to my kitchen. Okay, so today we're going to do a Bailey's cheesecake, and we're going to do it in my style, which is slightly different to how most people do it. I use McVitie's digestive biscuits crushed and in a lot of butter to make the base very, very rich and very crispy. A lot of Philadelphia cream cheese, double cream, and the real twist is I don't just put a little bit of Bailey's in, I put a lot of Bailey's in, and then I fortify it with a drop of whiskey. So I'm going to crush the biscuits now with this battering rod, and the reason I'm doing it this way rather than a food mixer is because I think the food mixer just produces a powder, and I want a little bit of texture. Although I want the biscuits well crushed, I do want a degree of texture in it. Now we're nearly there now, although we've got to finish that off in a moment. But now we're going to melt some butter. And this cheesecake is probably enough for about 10 people. It's quite a big cheesecake. So there's 2 packets of biscuits in this, and we're going to use the best part of half a pound of butter. And incidentally, I never work from recipes, never work from quantities. I work from flavour and texture and what I see visually. So we're only gently melting the butter because, of course, we don't want the butter caught. All we're going to do is put the crushed biscuits in there to make the base. Right, so now we're going to add all the crushed biscuits to this mix, to the butter. And what I absolutely adore about this dish is, well, first of all, what's not to like? We've got digestive biscuits soaked in beautiful Lurpak butter. I think it was Lurpak, but no, it's not, it's Tesco actually, but soaked in butter with fresh cream, double cream whipped, with Philadelphia cream cheese, Bailey's liqueur, fortified with whiskey and finished off with chocolate. It's just to die for. Will look initially as though you haven't got enough butter in here, but it gradually does spread through. It's just a little bit time consuming. You just have to take your time to spread it through the mix and it'll get there. And I think I probably have got about the right amount. I've used about 6 ounces of butter to 2 packets of digestive biscuits. And that is coming out at about the right ratio, I think. Okay, so the base is about almost ready to put in. I'm just finishing it off and making sure all the butter is soaked in. Then we put the biscuit base in. Delicious. What we've got to do is compact it down. So you can see now how that's compressing down, making a good solid biscuit base, because you want the biscuit base to hold together when you serve the cheesecake up. It's just a presentational thing, really. So the more you firm that down, the better, because it will then form a very, very solid base. And also it stops the cream mixing in too much. So there we have a lovely solid base, but just to help it go off even harder and firmer, we're going to put it in the freezer because it's still quite warm. So we'll put that in the freezer. It won't need to be in there above half an hour to be nice and solid. In the meantime, I will whip the cream. One of the issues with cheesecake is that because we're not doing a baked cheesecake, what we have to do is use some gelatin in it. But the first thing to do is whip the cream until it's as heavy as we can get it. But you mustn't whip the cream too quickly because it won't thicken as successfully as whipping it more slowly. We're just now going to whip the Philadelphia cream cheese. We're not going to do very much with that because it doesn't really need it, just to make it into a smooth consistency. The fresh cream, double whip. Now, as you can see, that is quite thick, but it's not thick enough for a Bailey's cheesecake, and that's why we have to use the gelatin. Otherwise, it will not set firm enough. So we put all of that cream in. Now, the top chefs all say you fold the cream in and so on, but anyway, I do it my way and it usually comes out very delicious. Okay, so we whip the cream and the Philadelphia together, and now this is all ready starting to make a delicious mix. And now this is where we put even more naughty stuff in, because we need the caster sugar. And you're probably going to say how much? Well, how much is to taste. So we're now going to put the Baileys in, which should be quite a liberal splash of Baileys, but it will thin the mix down as well as the counter. A little splash of whiskey. Not much, because we don't want it tasting overly alcoholic. And now this is where we mix it up, and then I go very much by taste. And if this tastes right, then I don't add anything. If I want the taste richer, sweeter, more alcoholic, then I will add accordingly. I always think that it's much more successful going by taste than a recipe, because everybody's got different taste buds. So if you do it to a recipe, it might not be sweet enough, or it might be too sweet. So I always think if you do it by taste, you get it to suit you and your family and get the best version of what you want. This cream now, as you can see, still runny. It's just had the gelatin added, but that is going to start firming up really beautifully. I'm going to put it in the fridge to help as well. So that's going in the fridge. Once again, only for about half an hour, so I should be able to pull those out, add them together, put the chocolate bits on, and we have a magnificent pudding. It'll be well and truly solidified. It's very firm, and that's exactly what we want. A really firm base that holds together so it can be served up properly. So here we are. We'll just spread all that gently over the biscuit base. So you can see now, even now it's still a little bit runny, so imagine what it would be like without the gelatin to firm it up. Now I'm not going to bother smoothing that over overly much. Part of the charm of it is looking a bit rustic and home prepared, not plastic and out of a shop, looking as though it's been made by a machine. It is firm enough now to take these chocolate bits. We're going to put a liberal amount of these on. Try this Bailey's cheesecake. You will be absolutely in love with it and probably never use any other formula. It's really, really delicious. Now I am going to pop that back now in the freezer just to firm the topping up, but I'll take it out a few hours before I'm going to serve it to thaw out properly, and by then it'll be lovely and firm.